Back in 2024, during the Data and AI Summit, Databricks ran a session called What's Wrong with the Medallion Architecture? That's their own conference and that's their own architectural pattern. And still, the session was there. What was covered in the session, you would ask? Well, they said that times and times again, they had companies and clients coming to them asking if they implemented their layers properly, asking what goes to the silver and what goes to the gold layer. And essentially no one in these companies knew how to answer these questions. And let me tell you something, that's what we see as well. With many of the existing implementations, there are problems with the Medallion architecture. And in this video, we're going to cover some very simple and easy steps that if you follow, you will avoid all of the mess. First, we're going to go through the decision boundaries and give you a specific, simple rule that you can use to decide whether some object goes to the silver or the gold layer. After that, we're going to talk about Unity catalog structure, providing you 3 ways in which you can do it, showing you the pros and cons of each one, and recommending the one that we actually use to make people's lives easier. And at the end, I'm going to provide you with a 3-question framework that we use to evaluate every Medallion architecture that we see in our clients. With these questions, you will be able to evaluate your current situation, pinpoint where the problems are, and we're going to share with you some ways to solve them. Stick around. But why now, you would ask? Why in 2024 we had this session, and why now in 2026 we are still talking about it? Well, the first proper Medallion architectures were created 2022, 2023. So, as you know, it takes some time to see hidden problems, especially when you're doing things at scale. It takes some time to build up. But with this time passing, people start leaving the company. People who understood why this is there and that is in the other layer were done like this. Technical debt starts accumulating. Quick and dirty solutions pile up. Problems arise. Suddenly, the bronze layer is very messy. The silver layer is very thick with logic, many complex aggregations, joining, and so on. And the gold layer, it gets abandoned. No one is using it. We have seen data lakes where actually 70% of the queries coming from reporting tools are pointing to the silver layer and only 20 to 30 in the gold layer. That's where the problem lies. Layer boundaries get blurred, costs starts crippling up, and CTOs and CFOs are asking questions. Where did we mess it up? Is our architecture wrong? On paper, it still looks like a good Medallion architecture, but in reality, it's more of a mess. If you are a CFO, seeing that the costs are starting to go up, this video is good for you. If you are a CTO, trying to understand what's wrong with your Medallion architecture, this video is really for you. And if you are currently planning on building or improving your Medallion architecture, I think that's the first video that you have to watch. It's gonna save you a lot of time and troubles in the future. The tricky part is that Medallion architecture is actually quite good, and it doesn't fail fast, and it doesn't fail loudly. It's an architecture that actually fails very quietly and over time. As we said, more and more systems are being onboarded on the bronze layer. More and more logic is being created on the silver layer. More and more reports are reading from the gold layer. And when this starts to scale, and when you don't have clear boundaries between these 3 layers, problems start piling up. And when there is one problem, there is no problem. When there are 2, there is no problem. But when we get to the hundreds, it starts accumulating. And one problem is hiding another one, and suddenly the costs start going up. People start getting lost in the whole Unity catalog, not being able to find their data. Data engineers start doing more maintenance than development, and the whole thing starts failing. We have seen cases in which 70% of the Databricks bill for compute was actually coming from a single materialized view on the silver layer. And that's a big issue because it's quite hard to find and it's costing you a lot. By now, you have understood where the problem is, I believe. We have discussed the context, the history, and how even Databricks themselves admit that there is such a problem. Let's start with some of the fixes. I think that the first and most important thing to cover is the boundary between the gold and the silver layer. And it has 2 points. It's the one when you start building them and the point in maintenance where you know that something is wrong and you have to fix it. And we have a very simple decision rule that can help you address both of these situations. The question that you should ask yourself when you're debating whether certain logic belongs in the silver or the gold layer is the following. Does it require domain knowledge? If the answer is yes, then the logic goes to the gold layer. If the answer is no, then it goes to the silver layer. In the silver layer, we are doing cleaning, data format transformation, deduplication, things like this. Things that every data engineer can do by themselves. Think like this. You can pick a new hire, and if you put them in the position to write this silver layer logic, they would be able to do it. When we talk about gold layer logic though, we require some knowledge of how this business is running. We need to know, for example, when the fiscal year starts and ends for this specific company. We need to know how this company calculates churn rate or how they calculate monthly active users. And we have seen many different implementations of this. If your logic requires knowledge like this, it should definitely go to the gold layer. In the gold layer, we have all the aggregations, joining, combination of different sources. That should be done in the gold layer. And the example that I gave before, if you have a new hire and you put them to write the gold layer logic, they would be not able to do it. Or they will do it according to their own understanding, but in most cases, it will be just plain wrong for the specific company. The Medallion architecture is very simple, applicable to pretty much every use case, and if done right, it can serve you well. But what's actually causing it to fail? It's convenience. It's this time when you had to do some small adjustments for a specific report and you said, I'm already on the silver layer, let me do it here quick and dirty. And this never changed. And then a second example like this appeared. Then there was this requirement for a new report. You had the data almost ready. You just prepped it a bit on the silver layer. You didn't build a new one. Also, a common thing we see is that when companies are building Medallion architectures, they start with the bronze, silver, and then they build gold, which of course makes sense. That's how we all do it. The problem with that is that many times there is not enough patience to actually wait for the gold layer to be ready. So people start running reports on the silver layer just because the gold is still not there. And in the future, actually, the silver becomes the main source for the queries, and the gold becomes abandoned. By the way, you can very easily detect this. Just look at the logs from your queries. How many of them are pointing to a silver layer table or view, and how many of them are pointing to a gold one? It's not uncommon to see that more than 70% of the queries are pointing to a silver table. And if that's the case, it's a clear sign that your Medallion architecture has been broken. And now is the time to actually fix it. Unity Catalog changed a lot about how we structure our data lakehouses. And the interesting part is that even Databricks don't answer the question, what's the best way to do it? In this part, we are going to cover the 3 main ways to structure your data lakehouse with Unity Catalog, with the pros and cons of each one, and we are going to tell you what we actually prefer and why. Let's start with the simplest, most basic option. One catalog, one schema per layer. So we have one catalog in which all the data is stored, and then we have bronze, silver, and gold schema where the tables go. The pro of this approach is that it's very simple. It's as simple as it gets. The con is that it doesn't scale well at all. If you have many domains, many tables, you will have to spend a lot of time to give table level permissions in between the teams. At some point it becomes very messy and very difficult to find your way through your data. The second way to do it is to have one catalog per layer. So we have one catalog for bronze, one for silver, one for gold. And in these catalogs we can use the different schemas for different domains. This gives us a lot more flexibility on the governance side. We can assign permissions to the different layers and also to the different domains. The problem with this is that when you have a lot of domains, suddenly you have a lot of schemas in your catalogs. You end up with maybe 200 schemas in one place, and it's becoming a bit of a mess to manage. And the last, and what we think is the best option, is domain first approach. So we have one catalog per domain in which we have schemas for bronze, silver and gold layer. In this way, every domain team can own their thing. So we have one catalog for finance, one catalog for logistics, one catalog for IT, and the respective domain team can manage this within their internal structure. It's also easy to provide different levels of access to the bronze, silver and gold layer. The biggest con of this approach is that it requires a lot of upfront investment. You have to know what your domains are, you have to know who is going to be responsible for that domain and who is going to manage it. And as much as this is a con, it's actually a pro as well, because it exposes the gap early. So from the beginning on, you will know who the responsible person is for a given domain and who is supposed to manage it. And believe me, this will make your life much easier in future. For most enterprise clients, we recommend going with the third approach. This will actually set up your governance right, and it follows up one of the best practices from Databricks themselves, which is governance first. Your data will be structured properly. When you have to search for something, it's actually easy. You just look for the respective catalog and your data should be there. What's more, it makes the combination of data between domains very apparent. It's much clearer when you have to go and join data from different catalogs. It will make you ask the question, is that the right thing to do? And if it is, you do it, but if it's not, you don't. And if all the tables are in one schema, it becomes much easier to mess things up and to join with the wrong table and respectively get the wrong result. That's why we recommend going domain first, putting the structure right from the beginning, and have a happier life later. Now, I'll tell you how we evaluate Medallion architectures. And there are 3 questions that we ask in the first 30 minutes of each of these architectural reviews and evaluations. And these questions help us immensely to understand if the architecture is doing its job or it's already not functioning as designed. The first question is, who consumes gold? If the answer is our BI tools, business people, data analysts, then the architecture is usually fine. If the answer is actually most of the queries go to silver and actually the tools are not really reading from gold, then we can see the gold abandonment. The second question is, can you name a person responsible for the silver-gold boundary for each table? Just one person, not a team. Do you have clear responsibilities on layer boundaries? That's essentially what we are trying to discover with this question. And if the answer is yes, and there are clear responsibilities assigned on a personal level, then probably the layer boundaries are in good shape. But if the answers are not very clear, if they point to a team, to domain team, then we can expect that there is some layer boundary erosion, and we should definitely dive deeper and explore what logic is stored where. The third question is, when was the last time you updated the gold layer and what triggered it? And this tells you a lot about the setup at the company and if the gold layer is actually serving the business that it's supposed to do. If the answer is that the gold layer was updated maybe more than 6 months ago, this would usually mean that you have a stale gold layer. The business is moving. There should be updates often. There should be new data sources, there should be updates of definition, and so on. And if the answer is that it was updated actually soon, you have to ask a clarification. What triggered it? Was it a business person who requested this, or was it engineers changing the logic? If it's the first, this signals a good setup at the company. It means that the right people are actually interested in consuming the right data. But if the changes were triggered by engineers, that's pointing to an issue that we already discussed. The gold layer is probably going to be abandoned soon, or it's containing logic that's not supposed to be there. And these 3 questions help us immensely to evaluate the architecture with every client. Let us know if they also work for you. Here are some points that I want you to take away from this video. Medallion architecture actually works. To be fair, it's not very different from traditional data warehousing. If you call it bronze or staging, if you call it semantic or silver, does it even matter? Data marts versus gold? I would say it's very, very similar. So it has been proven to be working. The pattern is good. Discipline is where it breaks. So make sure to keep clear decision boundaries between silver and gold. Make sure to point your clients to the right tables in the gold layer. Make sure that you don't contaminate your bronze layer and keep it as clean as possible. And it will work well for you, especially if you have structured it properly with Unity Catalog. Even if your current implementation is not perfect, diagnose it. Go and investigate it deep enough so that you understand all the problems, and then fix it. You don't have to rebuild it. You just have to move the logic in the right place to repoint the consumers of your data to the gold layer. And things will start running much smoother, much cheaper, and much more efficient for your organization. And this is what we actually do with our clients. We go in with simple session with 3 questions. We evaluate the current situation, and then we create a roadmap. We have seen teams going in and proposing roadmaps and big presentations without understanding the current situation, but that's not for us. We want to be very transparent, honest, and to work together with our clients to make sure that the solutions that they have are running to the highest standards possible. If you're running a Medallion architecture and if you want to get a free Medallion health check, don't hesitate to reach us. The phone and email numbers are listed below in the description, so just reach out. Also, if you found this interesting, please subscribe. We're gonna follow up with more videos with tips and learnings from our practical engagements, and we really hope that this is valuable for you and you can learn something out of it. If you found something particularly interesting, comment below. Tell us what your decision rules are when you have to decide between silver and gold layer. We read all of the comments and your feedback is very interesting for us.